Good morning, everyone. I am Jagrup Umrar, Minister of Mining and Critical Minerals, the best ministry in the province. Thank you for joining us on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people, known today as the Songi and Esquimalt nations. I'm really delighted to be acting today as your MC, the tallest MC you can find in this building. This morning, as we announce important legislation and regulatory actions that will power our clean economy forward. Joining me up here at the front to take part in today's announcement are, we have Honorable Premier David Eby, my friend Adrian Dix, Minister of Energy and Climate Solutions. We have Sue Wander Porter, Vice President of Clean Energy with First Nation and Major Project Coalition. Wesley Sam, Chief of the Silcasco First Nation and Chair of the Board of Directors of Cool Power. And Michael Goring, on his way, is President and CEO of the BC Mining Association of BC. With that, I would now like to ask Premier Eby to step up with today's announcement. Premier Eby.
Thanks, group. Nice. Good morning, everybody. Good to see all of you here, and we had a heck of a weekend. Go Jays, go! And good luck tonight. But that is not the subject of today's announcement. Today's announcement owes a lot of credit to Minister Adrian Dix and his team at the ministry. Really amazed and proud of the work that your team has done on this, Adrian. Thank you so much. As well as our partners in industry, across government and First Nations partners who have all helped bring us to this moment. Well, across the world right now, this won't come as news to anyone particularly. This time of great economic uncertainty and instability. Here in British Columbia and in Canada, we're seeing President Trump's continued attacks on core industries, on families, on communities, and threats to our sovereignty. In moments like this, British Columbians know we just can't sit back and wait for someone else to solve the problem. We have to build. And building has always been how this province has ensured prosperity for future generations. It's how we create opportunity. It's how we make sure that our kids and our grandkids find jobs in the communities that they love, that they're able to bring up their families, and help contribute to the province. It's by bringing forward real, shovel-ready projects that leverage billions of dollars in private investment. By doing this, BC will be the economic engine that drives this country forward and realizes the vision that all Canadians have of us standing on our own 2 feet, more independent of the US, and with trading partners across the world. But for this whole thing to happen, we need power. We need the electricity. We need to leverage the benefits that we have here in order to be able to realize the prosperity that we want. We need to ensure that we're accessing that clean, reliable, affordable power, the kind of power that will give us an edge in the global economy. That's why today we introduce new legislation, a law that will help us power the next generation of builders, the next generation of clean industrial growth in this province. This law will mean we can move faster on the North Coast Transmission Line. The North Coast Transmission Line is a nation-building project that will deliver clean electricity to power mines, to power port expansions, to reduce emissions from LNG facilities, all in partnership with First Nations and communities. It will mean major industrial connections for sectors like mining, natural gas, and manufacturing are prioritized. These are the sectors that create those good jobs, that support whole communities, and create the revenues for government to be able to pay for the services that people depend on. Once the North Coast Transmission Line is operational and industrial projects connect to this new line, the economic benefits of the projects are startling. They will contribute approximately $9.85 billion to GDP every year. They will generate about $1 billion in revenue to deliver services to people in our province and nationally. It will create almost 10,000 jobs, 9,700 direct jobs per year on average. and it will serve customers with clean electricity that will assist in reducing greenhouse gas emissions by approximately 2 to 3 million tons of carbon dioxide per year. The promise is incredible, but right now, outdated rules make it too difficult and too costly for major projects to get to that final investment decision, to make that decision to build and employ people and build our prosperity. So we're changing that too. Through regulation, we intend to make it easier for companies to make that final decision by getting them access to clean, sustainable power at fair rates without billions of dollars in upfront costs that can stifle investment. This is about building a modern economy, one that's powered by clean energy and real partnerships with communities and First Nations. Because when we do that, everybody wins. We have good jobs for families. We have long-term prosperity for communities and a cleaner, more secure energy future for our province. British Columbians have always built big things. We built the railways that crisscross this province. We built the dams that power our growth, our homes and industries. And now we're building the clean energy systems that will power our future. This is about confidence. It's confidence in who we are and what we can achieve when we work together. It's about making sure that the next chapter of BC's story is written by us, by workers, by families, by First Nations, by communities who believe in what's possible when we work together. Because when we build in BC, we build for everyone. Our future will be cleaner, stronger, more prosperous, and shared by all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Premier Eby, for this great announcement. Now I will invite my friend Adrian Dix, Minister of Energy and Climate Solutions, to tell us a bit more about the action we are announcing today. Minister Dix. Maybe I should close this.
Thank you, Minister Brard, your group. It's great to be here. I'll wait for the podium to go down there. I want to take the opportunity to thank particular from the First Nations Major Projects Office, Sue Vanderpoort. And that office has played a really important role in developing the historic nature, I think, of what we're doing today. I want to thank my friend Wesley Sam for being here. He has been a true leader in his community and in this province in terms of developing clean economic development for his people and for all people in BC. And I want to express my appreciation to him and to Michael as well for being here today. When the Premier asked me to take on the job of Minister of Energy and Climate Solutions, he said we need to act with urgency. And that urgency became even more significant, I think, after the actions of the United States government in January of 2025 and since with respect to tariffs and their attacks on our sovereignty. We need in BC to leverage all of our competitive advantages, and that starts with clean energy. The North Coast Transmission Line is a nation-building joint venture partnership with First Nations for BC and Canada to unleash the economic potential of the North Coast to develop critical mines, port expansions, low-emission, low LNG projects, and other projects in the Northwest and beyond. And in response to requests for large amounts of power from traditional and emerging industries, we need to take steps to manage demand for electricity responsibly in order to keep rates low. Everyone here will know that rates have dropped under the current government by 12.4% against inflation since 2017, and to achieve the greatest benefits for our province in terms of jobs, reconciliation, climate action, and public revenues. This is what we're doing with the legislation we're introducing today and the regulatory supports that follow. The added capacity of the North Coast Transmission Line will help realize new mining ports and LNG projects that will run their operations on clean energy. Without these changes today, critical mining and LNG projects in the North simply won't move forward. That would mean walking away from thousands of good-paying jobs, billions of dollars in private investment, and real wealth, personal for people working and collective in terms of our collective opportunity to make a better future. We know that the world's economy is transitioning to clean energy, and BC, with its rich mining mineral deposits, has the opportunity to supply many of the minerals needed for a low-carbon future. The actions we're announcing today will ensure that NCTL gets built as a joint venture with First Nations for the first time in the history of BC Hydro, that major projects, including mining, can connect, and that our economy diversifies away from reliance on the United States. In addition, while natural resource industries are driving demand for clean energy, BC Hydro is also receiving significant requests for power from emerging energy-intensive industries such as data centers, artificial intelligence, and hydrogen. We need to remain responsive to evolving market conditions and the growing demand for clean electricity. A new BC electricity allocation framework will prioritize industries such as mining and natural gas, which contribute meaningfully to jobs, long-term economic development, First Nations reconciliation, and public revenue, and support the pace growth and expansion of new and emerging industries, such as data centers, artificial intelligence, and hydrogen production for export. The allocation framework allows for the pace growth of these sectors and avoids mistakes we've seen in other jurisdictions where growth has outpaced infrastructure, resulting in higher costs for everyday residential customers. We won't make that mistake. We will prioritize the projects that provide the greatest benefit to British Columbians. As the Premier has said, BC is ready to be Canada's economic engine. In the 1960s, W.A.C. Bennett nationalized BC Electric, the social credit government at the time, because the private sector would not, at that time, put forward the risk involved in developing two rivers at once. The progress that was made, the economic development that was made that resulted in that was significant. We need to do the same thing now, and we're doing it with our call for power, with our second call for power, with our call for expressions of interest, with the legislation in Bill 14, with the clean energy that we are producing, and the transmission line, the North Coast transmission line, that will feed that energy, electrify economic development in the Northwest. I'm proud of the work that we're doing, that the people at BC Hydro, people in the Ministry of Energy are doing to make this happen. I'm proud of a government that is putting BC first and saying that BC Hydro will be what it must be, which is a key element in promoting economic development in our province. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dix. The North Coast transmission line is generating new opportunities for First Nations. In July this year, the province and BC Hydro signed what we call the term sheets with most First Nations along phase 2 of the line. This includes 6 First Nations and 7 of the 8 Wet'suwet'en houses. And the term sheet lay out the groundwork for comprehensive legal partnership between Nation and BC Hydro for the North Coast transmission line. And progress towards agreement with Phase 1 nations continues. I would like to invite Suzanne Wander-Porton to talk about the opportunity the North Coast transmission line is opening for First Nations. Suzanne is Vice President of Clean Energy Strategy with the First Nations Major Project Coalition. Suzanne, thank you.
Thank you, Premier Eby, Minister Dix, Minister Barr, and in advance, Chief Wesley Sam. As they mentioned, my name is Sue Vonderporten. I live here in Victoria on the unceded lands of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations. I'm the Vice President of Clean Energy Strategy at the First Nations Major Projects Coalition, and it is an honor to be here today on behalf of the FNMPC. The First Nations Major Projects Coalition is a national First Nations-led nonprofit organization representing 181 First Nations across Canada. Together, our members are advancing First Nations participation and, where appropriate, equity ownership in major projects across their territories. At the Coalition, we provide support and technical advice to our members on large-scale projects in energy, mining, hydroelectricity, wind power, transmission, and others. For example, we are currently supporting 4 of our members involved in the North Coast transmission line, a project that will mark the first transmission line in BC with First Nations equity ownership. In addition to direct project support, we also share research and policy materials, such as our National Indigenous Electrification Strategy. This strategy outlines potential pathways to advance electrification projects in ways that also promote economic reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. These materials are publicly available on our website at fnmpc.ca. The legislative amendments under discussion today would open the door for First Nations to pursue equity participation in transmission lines, an approach that aligns with what is already happening in other parts of Canada. In Ontario, for example, First Nations are offered 50% equity options in new major transmission projects, and there are now 11 such projects proceeding with this structure in Ontario. It is positive to see that BC is now considering a framework that would provide similar opportunities for First Nations here. For those First Nations who choose to pursue co-ownership, these legislative changes could create important options. From our perspective at the Coalition, the ability to consider equity participation is an important step in ensuring First Nations can engage with infrastructure projects in terms that reflect their priorities and their aspirations. The FNMPC is pleased to be here today. Thank you. Go Blue Jays.
Thank you, Suzanne. The Cool Power is a collaboration of First Nations, and that came together in 2023 to pursue ownership and development of renewable energy project in Northwest BC. And it led negotiation between the nation, the province, and BC Hydro on the term sheets, signed in July for the North Coast transmission line. So now I would like to introduce Wesley Sam, Chief of the Silcasco First Nation and Chair of the Board of Directors of Cool Power, to say a few words. Sam?
Thank you, Minister Brar, and thank you, Premier Eby, Minister Dix, and everyone here today as we mark what truly is a significant milestone. 2 years ago, I had the honor of co-announcing Cool Power, a name that means coming together. It represented a desire among First Nations in the Northwest BC to work collaboratively, not in isolation, toward a shared vision. We are collaborating to create a future where major infrastructure projects are owned by First Nations with various partners, including each other. This future will reflect Indigenous leadership, collaboration, prosperity, and self-determination. We are no longer on the margins of projects to be consulted and accommodated. First Nations are leaders and partners in building the green economy of the future. In July, we signed a term sheet agreements with the province and BC Hydro that laid the groundwork for comprehensive legal partnerships in NCTL, the first of its kind in this province and the country. Today marks another critical step by enabling BC Hydro to form a genuine partnership with First Nations. We're moving closer to our vision of co-ownership of the North Coast transmission line, from construction to its full life. Our team has invested thousands of hours to get here, and there's still much more work ahead. But we remain committed, because NCTL is just one part of a larger picture, a clean energy future built on partnerships, shared ownership, and long-term benefits for our communities. This project will make a significant contribution to industrial growth in our region, ensuring that growth happens in a good way, in a green way, and in a healthy way. It will also bring modern grid infrastructure to First Nations, co-owned mega projects, as well as three-phase power to remote First Nation communities, allowing them to participate in this new green economy. When this larger puzzle is complete, It will tell a story of First Nations leadership, prosperity, and self-determination with national and global significance. To make the story real, we need to continue to work together and collaborate more. We need to focus on the projects we agree on and have them built. We can do this in an environmentally sustainable manner that protects our communities while creating business opportunities and employment for our people. Awetsa, thank you.
Thank you, Chief Sam, for the exceptional work you're doing to bring everybody together. As the Premier and Minister Dix have talked about the North Coast Transmission Line, the electricity allocation framework support the growth of BC mining and critical minerals sector. And I just want to say to you that we have more than a dozen projects that actually need real project we have in the province of British Columbia that need power to move forward. And this sector, is the backbone of the BC economy, and it supports 40,000 good family supporting jobs. So I have with me my friend Michael Goring, President and CEO of Mining Association BC. He has done an exceptional job to lead the industry at this very historic time. So he's here to tell us a bit more about the opportunity the mining sector has with this power moving forward. So Michael, thank you.
Good morning, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here in our People's House and in the Rotunda this morning, and a pleasure to be here with Premier Eby and Ministers Dix and Brar. Thank you, and my friends at the First Nations Major Projects Coalition. My name is Michael Goring. I'm the President and CEO of the Mining Association of British Columbia. We've been the voice of mining and smelting in BC since 1901. And we represent 19 major operating mines and 2 operating smelters in our province, along with a number of mining project development companies. I'm very pleased to be here today on behalf of BC's mining industry to support the province's actions to advance this important transmission line towards its construction in partnership with First Nations communities. It's a good day. The North Coast Transmission Line is a nation-building project. It will bring clean electricity to mining projects in the northwest and central interior of British Columbia. There are a number of critical mineral and precious metal mines proposed in these regions. At a tenuous time for our economy and our nation, the North Coast Transmission Line will strengthen Canada's position as a leading global supplier of critical minerals and metals and unlock more than $45 billion in near-term economic activity from mine construction for British Columbia and for all Canadians. Over several decades, our economic analysis estimates that the operation of these mines over several decades will deliver some $420 billion in economic activity for BC and for Canada. So the North Coast Transmission Line is crucial to the development of our province's critical mineral and mining sector. Up to 1,000 megawatts of new electricity demand is expected from new or expanding critical mineral and precious metal mines in the central interior and northwest of our province, and in what we call our mineral-rich Golden Triangle, or what some are now referring to as the Northwest Critical Mineral and Conservation Corridor. The legislation tabled today, along with proposed regulatory changes, are a necessary and very welcome step to develop a reliable supply of clean electricity that mine developers may access and rely on. Certainty around the construction of the line and provision of timely, cost-effective electricity is key for each project and an essential consideration in a company's decision to invest. Without a reliable, cost-effective, and timely supply of power, these mines will not be built. The NCTL is a necessary step forward and builds on the Eby government's support for and prioritization of the development of BC's critical minerals and metals industry, which includes a strong commitment to speed the permitting and authorizations of critical mineral and mining projects in British Columbia. A commitment that we hope will materialize into a competitive advantage for British Columbia and Canada at a time when our allies and partners are looking to us to be dependable suppliers of responsibly produced critical minerals and metals in order to meet their climate action, technology, and national security objectives. I want to close to say, given the NCTL truly is a project that will help secure BC and Canada's economic future and long-term prosperity, I want to take this opportunity to urge Prime Minister Carney and the Government of Canada to work with British Columbia to cost-share this important transmission infrastructure project, which is truly nation-building. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for your strong support and for your leadership once again. This brings us to the end of our announcement. Thank you to our speakers, and thank you to everyone here today and for coming. And now I will open it up for media questions, but I will not be answering the questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister Brar. We have media here in person, and we're going to take as many questions as we can. All reporters will have one question and one follow-up. And we're going to start with Mr. Richard Zussman from Global News.
Thank you. Blue Jays fan also. Premier David Eby, for you. Malcolm Brody, the mayor of Richmond, sent a letter to residents on the weekend about a town hall that they are having. He's also said around the Cowichan Lands decision. He said that he wants certainty for both the province and the federal government around arguing in appeal that private ownership should be protected from any decision. Is that the argument that you plan to make on appeal? And John Rustad has also raised concerns saying that you're not moving fast enough here to provide certainty, and that he believes that you should not be negotiating with First Nations while this appeal is underway. What do you say to both those ideas?
Thanks. I share the concern of Mayor Brody about the implications of this decision. It's a big deal. And it's crucial for our economy, for just the basic economics of a family, that people understand their private property rights. It's the basis of how things work in the province. So clarity and resolution is urgently needed. And yes, in the appeal, of course, we are arguing to defend those private property rights of those homeowners and for certainty to ensure that businesses can make the decisions to invest that they need to make. This will be a process as it goes through the courts, but I have to say the suggestion that while we wait for a resolution of this in front of the courts, that we put on hold the entire provincial economy. I mean, even just today's announcement, we're talking about $50 billion of investment in new mines in the Northwest, a transmission line that will create almost 10,000 jobs. All of that would have to be put on hold. But never mind Silism's LNG, Cedar LNG. These are Indigenous-run LNG facilities. We're just going to stop talking to those nations and put everything on hold. It would be a disaster. And so that is the level of thought that comes out of the Conservatives on this. They have chaos in their ranks. They want chaos in our economy. Our position is very clear. We want to build this province. That's what the legislation's about that got introduced. We're going to create jobs and prosperity in every corner of this province, and we're going to make all Canadians proud as we drive forward national prosperity as well with the work that we're doing. And that work is actually done in partnership with First Nations and with rural and remote communities and people in every corner of this province.
And follow-up, Richard?
On the North Coast transmission line, what guarantees are there that the materials used for building will be procured as locally as possible? And should British Columbians expect that we will be required to go to China to procure steel to help with this major infrastructure investment?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. One of the things that we really are committed to here in British Columbia is to using our opportunities that are here in this province to lift up all Canadians. And if that means opportunities to make sure that we're using Canadian steel in the construction, other ways of procuring that support people from coast to coast to coast, we're all for that. Our anxiety is always making sure that the unique circumstances of the West is recognized when Ottawa considers how we can best support that national economy. It costs a lot of money to ship steel from Ontario to British Columbia on our railways. Those railway freight rates are a topic of conversation with us with the federal government right now. We have to make sure that we're supporting all Canadians, both through employment and prosperity, but not exclusively at the expense of British Columbians. And so we'll continue those conversations forward with the federal government.
Thank you, Premier. Next, we'll head to Katie DeRosa from the CBC.
Premier, further to the letter sent by Mayor Brody, do you think that that was the right approach, or could it further create fear among homeowners? And do you think there's any risk that people who are potentially, if they're trying to get a mortgage or remortgage, what will the practical implications be as we wait for the next level of court to decide?
Yeah, we were the first ones out of the gate on an appeal on this, and the reason for that is we understand the significance of this decision and the importance for early resolution. We're actually working very closely with the City of Richmond on the appeal and leaning on them for some evidence that they have that others won't be able to bring forward about what this decision means. So we'll be working closely with Mayor Brody, with the City of Richmond, with the other people who are appealing this decision and raising concerns about it. We hope that the court, we're able to make the arguments in court in relation to how the decision is implemented, whether or not there should be a stay granted, for example, while it's resolved. We hope the courts will reach those decisions very quickly. We'll be making arguments that the court should resolve that very quickly because of the uncertainty it creates for families and for businesses in that area. Certainty around the private property rights in the province, your home, your business that the property is set on is crucial for our province's success, just like partnerships with First Nations are crucial for our province's success. We have to have both.
And follow-up, Katie?
And on the AI data centers, many communities have expressed concerns about the level of water that's required to power those centers, like 70,000 liters of drinkable water a day. How will the province compete with that when there's droughts often in the summer?
Sure, I mean, there are really exciting new economic opportunities that are out there. AI data centers can be really positive. They can deliver benefits for community. We can ensure sovereignty for Canadian data and for processing here in British Columbia. And there can be ways that these data centers give back to communities in different ways, like how they manage waste heat or how they reuse water instead of using fresh water. But that requires individual negotiations with project proponents and not whoever's next in line gets plugged in. And that's what this legislation's about. It enables the ministry and BC Hydro to enter into discussions with hydrogen producers or with AI data centers about how we can make sure that we're balancing, ensuring our electricity is used to create prosperity and jobs, and making sure that we're working with different new technologies that are available and doing it in a way that lifts everybody up instead of comes at the expense of really exciting projects that are going to create a lot of employment in this province.
Thank you, Premier. Next, we'll head to Rob Buffum from CTV.
Well, hi, Premier. A year ago, if you cast your mind back to a year ago today, you were still at home, I think, waiting to see the outcome of the election. You met us over there a week or two later and expressed some relief. Since then, 5 members of the Conservatives have left or been kicked out of the party. How much more confident in your position are you, and what's your thoughts on what's going on with the opposition?
Well, you know, for myself, for the members of our caucus, for our team, our focus is just British Columbians. It's an incredibly tumultuous time for British Columbians and Canadians. Our forest sector, for example, facing those additional tariffs last week, so-called national security tariffs from Donald Trump that are threatening communities right across this province, threatening families. That's what British Columbians want us to be focused on, and that's what we're going to stay focused on. That is our #1 priority. That's what today's announcement is about, creating more jobs, growing our economy, standing on our own 2 feet. We're working closely with the forest sector and the federal government to respond to the threats from Trump. The Conservatives have an entirely different focus, and I don't understand what it is, but their proposal yesterday that we shut down major projects across the province is just an example of how out of touch they are with where British Columbians are right now. So we're going to stay focused on British Columbians and making sure that we're growing the economy and realizing the promise of this province, which is that we are going to lead Canada's economy into this new era because of our geography, because of our abundant resources, but most importantly, because of our people.
And follow-up, Rob?
Just in light of the anxiety that many property homeowners must be feeling in Richmond in particular in advance of that meeting later this week, why not refer this matter, join the push to refer it to the Supreme Court of Canada just to provide some clarity for people who must have these concerns?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. The anxiety among people who are affected by this decision is totally reasonable. That's why our lawyers were in court saying, court, you need to provide notice to these property owners so they can participate in the hearing. Unfortunately, the court decided not to provide that notice. So the first that some people are hearing about this is the letter that they got from the City of Richmond, which is totally unacceptable. And this is one of the arguments we're bringing forward on appeal. Key pieces of evidence like that of how this hearing actually went down need to be in front of the Court of Appeal, but would not be in front of the Supreme Court of Canada because of the way that a reference works. We don't want a decision made in the abstract. We want a decision made on the facts. It needs to be made on the facts, and we're advancing as quickly as we can to get to the Court of Appeal so those facts are in front of the justices and they're able to render a decision that makes sense in the context of the decision, the context of the City of Richmond, and the property owners who are affected.
Thank you, Premier. Next, we'll head to Rob Shaw from Czech News. Go ahead, Rob.
Hey, Premier. As you continue your transition to natural resource hawk, I wanted to check in with you on fracking. If this new electricity opens up more liquefied natural gas, requires more natural gas, gas comes increasingly from fracking. Do you have any concerns about the expansion of that in the province, the use of that currently, the environmental impact of that, and that you might be in some ways sort of expanding that?
Well, absolutely we're concerned about the impacts of natural gas production in the province, the methods by which it's done, and reducing emissions. That's why we brought in North America leading regulations to reduce methane emissions. We've reduced methane emissions by more than 30%. We think we can go even further. We've done this in partnership with industry. The North Coast Transmission Line itself will assist us in electrifying operations to bring those emissions down further. When this work is done, even now, but when this work is done especially, we will have the lowest carbon intensity natural gas in the world. And that is significant for trading partners like Japan and Korea and Malaysia, countries that have their own climate goals, that are trying to hit their own goals, and it matters to them how you produce things. It gives us a competitive advantage. As the world dials down carbon intensity, we believe that our natural gas will have a significant advantage, and especially over what we're seeing out of the United States, which is an indifference to that kind of regulation. And having these facilities electrified in British Columbia, providing employment to British Columbians, instead of a plant in Alaska that would have no standards, that would destroy habitats, that would have much higher methane emissions, and yet be serving the same markets, it's a no-brainer. So it's not that I love natural gas, it's that I love jobs for British Columbians. I love prosperity for our province. I love that we can do this in a way that is responsible and reflective of the values of British Columbians, lifting remote and rural communities out of poverty, creating jobs and opportunity, and doing it in a way that reduces carbon pollution. I think it's an important consideration for us as we move forward and try to navigate these perilous economic times.
And follow-up, Rob?
Just back on the Cowichan Nation case. The letter from the mayor made the point that the city is the only one in the court proceedings that argued for extinguishment of title, and that the province has a directive, you were the Attorney General, that forbids the province from arguing that. Do you agree that the directive as it stands is one you support? Should it be changed? Did it contribute in any way to the province not making fulsome arguments here on private property rights?
Not at all. The City of Richmond thoroughly argued the issue of extinguishment in front of the court, and it was not successful. Our lawyers make decisions about which arguments to make in front of the court. And if they had believed that if extinguishment was a key argument to make, that it would be successful, they would bring it to the Attorney General, and the Attorney General would act accordingly. In this situation, the argument was made. It wasn't successful. I suspect Richmond will make the argument again at the Court of Appeal, and the court will make a decision on it. Every party makes arguments that they feel will be most effective, and there will be multiple parties at the Court of Appeal, and I'm sure we'll hear multiple arguments and multiple approaches.
Thank you, Premier. Next, we'll head to Justine Hunter with the Globe and Mail.
Thanks, Premier. On the transmission line, you're talking about shovel-ready projects that would contribute almost $10 billion annually to GDP. I'm trying to get a sense of a timeline of when we're going to see any of this. So what year is that going to be?
Thanks. Maybe I'll pass it over to the Minister of Energy on timelines on the transmission line, and Mr. Brar, maybe, on mining. We'll start with the Energy Minister.
In terms of this project, Justine, we expect shovels in the ground in 2026 for the first phase of the first and second phases of the line. So that doubles our capacity into the region from Prince George to Terrace. And then after that, phase 3 will be to go north. But it's our expectation that, and it's the reason we're taking this decision now, as opposed to waiting for final investment decisions on the various mining projects in question, because we want to be ready for them. And so we're acting now in advance of when the projects themselves will be ready in order to deliver the electricity that needs to be delivered. But we're starting now. One of the advantages of our partnership with First Nations along the line is it speeds up the building of the line, which has value in terms of costs, of course, but also has value in terms of the benefits to the line, to the region. It's the first time that's ever been done. So we're starting the work now. Obviously, the mining projects you talk about depend on final investment decisions by mining companies. But the difference between this and other projects is that in BC Hydro's time, is that they're taking more risk. We are saying we see this demand and we are going to meet this demand and not lose this opportunity. So I don't want to anticipate when the final investment decisions are made by particular projects or mines, whether it be Galore Creek or FBX Minerals or others. But we're going now in order to build to be ready for when they need us to be ready.
And follow-up, Justine?
Sorry, I tried to keep my question super simple, but it's the $10 billion figure, or 9 point whatever billion, that the Premier mentioned. So when is that supposed to be hitting the economy? So that, I'm not asking about when you're going to start the transmission line.
Yeah.
You've been transparent about that. When are we going to see the benefits? So where does that figure come from?
We're going to see the benefits, obviously, once the line is built and once the final investment decisions are made on those mining projects. You'll know, for example, that the Solistums LNG project, which is another project, has received environmental assessment approval. They'll be making their final investment decision in the next while. And so we'll hear about the impact of that at that time. But obviously, these are private sector projects, but they are coming. We have a significant advantage here. But it's when you have private sector projects, it's private sector riders who will give you those timelines. But we're very positive about this. We did in 2023 a call for the expressions of interest from participants in the region. It showed 4 times the demand that we will be supplying in the North Coast transmission line. It showed extraordinary demand, and we believe we'll meet it.
Thank you, Minister. Next, we'll head to Amelia Macauer from Radio Canada. Oh, sorry, Minister Brar is going to comment.
Yeah, from the mining sector, I just want to say that we opened two new mines this year, and we have issued a permit to the Highland Valley Copper and also the Caribou Gold mine. We have right now 8 projects going through the permitting process. Those are real projects. And the investment piece of that comes very quickly. I think there are number of proponents who are waiting for the decision about this this transmission line, and then subsequently they're going to make actually a investment decision. So those are it's very important for the mining sector for the proponent to know that this transmission line is going to move forward. We also have, I would say, the critical minerals at this point in time is the key to grow the economy and create good jobs for the people of British Columbia. We can produce 19 out of 32 critical minerals listed on the Canadian list. We are the highest producer of copper. We are the only producer of molybdenum. So we have real projects out there waiting for this transmission line so that they can make a transition, they can make investment decision.
Yeah, Justine, in response to your question, I would say, I mean, this line, in my view, and in our industry's view, is a strategic and safe bet. The kind of underlying drivers for demand for the critical minerals and metals that BC produces are significant. Right now, I mean, we are Canada's largest producer and exporter of copper. Copper is the electrification metal. And right now, globally, copper markets are tight. There is a shortage in global copper. And that's not fully reflected in the market, but if you're listening out there the last few months, prices are starting to rise, notwithstanding global tensions. So long term, countries want to be here in BC and in Canada for that copper. We also have many other critical minerals and metals, not to mention gold, which is on a huge tear and will be as long as we have kind of the challenges that we face globally right now with geopolitics. So, you know, this is government, I think, having a look around and having some forethought and saying, where do we want to be? We need to build this line now. And I know that, I mean, there's been a lot of discussion with the sector, and it will, like I said, you won't see those mines develop without it. So it's, I think, a very strategic and smart move to get it going now, and particularly in partnership with First Nations. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. Now we will head to Amelia Macauer from Radio Canada. Go ahead, Amelia.
Thank you for taking my question. Yeah, for Minister Dix. Basé sur les besoins énergétiques des prochaines années dans le Nord, plusieurs intervenants ont parlé de projets LNG, hydrogène, vous avez les minéraux critiques. Est-ce que l'expansion de cette ligne va pouvoir nourrir tous ces projets dans le futur?
Oui, je pense tout à fait. Et je pense que c'est important. C'est une... je pense qu'on revive un peu les années 60 du XXe siècle, où BC Hydro construit pour produire, pour démontrer un rôle de développement économique qui est important. La région actuellement n'a pas assez d'électricité pour ses besoins, même pour des gens, mais certainement pas pour les mines et pour des autres opportunités. Donc, ce qu'on fait, c'est qu'on construit cette ligne pour avancer ces projets et pour prendre avantage. C'est quelque chose qui a une ampleur nationale pour produire le développement économique qui va transformer la région et donner de l'opportunité aux gens de développer leurs propres besoins et opportunités économiques.
Est-ce que tu as une autre question, madame?
Oui, merci. Mon autre question, c'est, ce qui est intéressant aussi, c'est que vous interdisez l'accès à la transmission, à la ligne, aux projets de crypto-monnaie. Est-ce que vous pouvez expliquer pourquoi est-ce que les projets de crypto-monnaie ne pourront pas avoir accès à l'électricité?
Non, je pense que ce n'est pas une question de cette ligne, mais c'est une question du système. Il y a un tas d'opportunités pour AI, un tas d'opportunités pour les centres de data, mais c'est une question dans les juridictions un peu partout en Amérique du Nord et dans le monde, n'est-ce pas? Et il faut soutenir des projets qui avancent les intérêts de la Colombie-Britannique, que ce soit la souveraineté en matière de data, mais aussi en matière d'intérêt économique. Donc, on va planifier ce processus, pas pour les ressources naturelles, pour la région, mais pour la province, pour assurer que nous sommes en mesure de produire l'électricité nécessaire pour ces nouvelles économies qui sont importantes, mais qui ont présenté au système de l'électricité un peu partout en Amérique du Nord des difficultés aussi.
We'll see. Next, we'll head to Shannon Waters from the Narwhal.
Hi there. I wanted to ask about the changes being made to the Utilities Commission Act. Basically, from what I understand, you're going to direct the commission to deem this project in the public interest without going through the usual discussion around a certificate process. You've introduced a lot of legislation this year to streamline and make things move faster, often to at least a certain degree at the expense of transparency, public accountability, public participation. What would you say to people who have concerns about pushing a project this big forward without the full consideration of the BC Utilities Commission?
Yeah, thanks, Shannon. Your question has it exactly right. The question that would be in front of the Utilities Commission is the North Coast transmission line in the public interest? And there would be an extended set of hearings. We would tack on a number of months, maybe even a year of process to have a determination by the Utilities Commission, is this in the public interest to go ahead? We are making the decision as a government that this is in the public interest. We will be held accountable for that decision by voters, but to my mind, there is no debate about this. This transmission line will open up economic development in an entire region of our province that has not seen the prosperity, not seen the benefits that other regions have, and largely because it hasn't had access to electricity, that high voltage electricity that drives economic development. This will lift whole communities out of poverty. This will create almost 10,000 jobs. This will leverage a significant factor of private investment that will, this is like a big revenue machine for communities, families, and government that has a plug on the end. It just needs to be plugged in. And so we're building the plug. We think the plug is in the public interest, turning on that machine, getting it going, getting it building, getting it creating opportunity for people everywhere in the Northwest is hugely in the public interest. And it is entirely consistent with what people in this province have always done. Building dams, building railways from the coast all the way to the interior and the north, building this province, building big things, and creating prosperity in doing so. But we're doing it in a way that future generations will be proud of, in partnership with First Nations to reduce carbon pollution and leveraging our inherent benefits as a province. So it's a really exciting project. Obviously, I'm excited about it, but I think whether or not it's in the public interest, certainly that will ultimately be put to voters. But I think the case really makes itself.
And follow-up, Shannon?
Your press release bills some of the changes that this legislation is making as a way to protect BC Hydro ratepayers from rising electricity rates. But some of the other changes that you're making with this bill alter a policy that is designed to protect BC Hydro ratepayers from bearing disproportionate costs related to infrastructure that benefits industry. I'm wondering how you are planning to protect BC Hydro ratepayers from potentially facing rising rates as a result of those changes. And I'm talking about the connection tariffs and the changes that are going to be made to how these industrial projects contribute to the costs of connecting them to the BC Hydro grid.
Yeah, sure. Well, keeping rates affordable for British Columbians has been a key priority of this government, and our record is quite good on this. If you look at our jurisdiction compared to jurisdictions even next door, Alberta, Washington State, but across North America, we have some of the lowest hydro rates of anywhere. And that benefit of having low hydro rates is an advantage that we can leverage to grow our economy. When you have a major investment like Site C that creates additional capacity across the system, that cost is shared by all ratepayers. That will continue to be the case going forward. We're engaging with conversations with the federal government to get support and assistance in what is really a nation-building project. This line, at its full extension, will go all the way up to the Yukon. Will assist with northern sovereignty issues, defense concerns that have been raised by the Yukon. This line is the Yukon's #1 priority as well. And so our partnership with the federal government will help protect ratepayers. And by making these changes, we ensure that we're not telling people who want to put billions of dollars into our province and hire thousands of people that in order to do so, they have to put up $1 billion first for the privilege of investing. We're saying we're lowering those barriers, saying, come in, we'll work with you, and we'll create prosperity together.
And we have time for one more question, and we're going to head to Les Lane from the Times Colonist.
Thank you. Premier, how far along the line, on the timeline from hazy concept to the backhoes showing up, how far along the line is the North Coast transmission line? Does it have green lights all the way through to starting construction in 26, or are there sticking points expected along the way, apart from federal funding?
Okay, thanks, Les. I'll just pass this over to the Minister.
So the government made a decision in 2023 with BC Hydro to pursue this, and at the time, a request was made to possible industrial users, say, what are the demands for power in the region in 2023. Subsequent to that, the project was set forward as a priority in BC Hydro's capital plan in 2024. We have been in intense discussions. I think Chief Sam talked about thousands of hours. I think he's not understating that. We'll see if we get to tens of thousands, of hours of work together with First Nations. The intention of that is to move quickly. In other words, to have shovels in the ground in 2026 on a project of fundamental importance, that where we were seeking whether it should happen in 2023, we announced we were proceeding in 2024. In 2025, we passed legislation and have been moving forward with our negotiations, and in 2026, we're going to begin construction. All of this interests all ratepayers of all kinds in getting a project that's absolutely needed for the opening up of our province done efficiently, and to do so in partnership with First Nations in a way that's never been done before. I think it's gone very well so far, and our job is to get it going, get it done on the timeline that we expect, and I expect that we will.
And follow-up, Les?
The Field of Dreams tagline, if you build it, they will come. It's a cliche now, but there's no, or I should ask, are there minds now that are just all set to push the go button on multi-million-dollar projects? Absolutely rock-solid assurances? Are you building this in the obviously confident expectations that they're going to show up if you build this line?
This is a necessary step. It doesn't create the final investment decisions. Those are decisions to be made by investors, but it's an absolutely necessary step. As we've been clear from the beginning on this, and in building this, we are in fact, yes, taking on an approach similar to that of governments in the past, of using BC Hydro as a tool of building our province and building prosperity in our province, absolutely, but we're confident that yes, that will happen, and that this step we're taking today is an absolutely necessary steps to those investment decisions that will follow. We're very confident about that and very positive about it. Minister Brar is working day and night on the question, and I'm confident we're going to be able to proceed to go ahead. So yes, it is a different approach for BC Hydro, but it's an approach that puts the economic future of our province to the forefront at a time when we absolutely need to do that.
Thank you very much, everyone. That concludes today's event.